Hi, everybody. Welcome to this interview with Miki Kashtan. My name is Davide, and my colleague Teresa and I are part of a team of people that have been working with Miki for the last 6 months to create the infrastructure for the Nonviolent Global Liberation Apprenticeship Program and Learning Community.
And in this interview, we would like to share with the world what NGL is in a nutshell. Welcome, Miki. What is the Nonviolent Global Liberation Apprentice Program and Learning Community?
It's a grand experiment of co-creating with others an opportunity to bring to the world an approach and a set of principles and practices that I've developed over years of study, practice, teaching, applying, consulting, facilitating, so that there is a body of people all around the world who are ready to apply the tools that we are going to continue to co-create and develop together.
Wow, that's interesting. And let's go a bit into detail about what inspired you to create this program and what's the intention, what's your hope behind it?
My life is dedicated to doing all I can as an individual and with other people to increase the chances that the human species might actually get through this period and continue to survive. And this is in question, very seriously in question now. My days are numbered. I'm not young anymore, I'm 62. And I want this work to continue past my time, to outlive me. And I got to understand that lots of women do lots of work, and when they die, the work disappears because they don't leave behind them a group of people engaged and committed to continuing with the work. And so I decided to try to create that group while I'm still alive and in my prime of contributing and creating, to develop it and create the structures that will sustain that work to continue even beyond them to the extent that it's possible.
I would like to hear what does each of the words, nonviolent, global, liberation, mean to you, and why did you choose them?
So the name itself was co-created. It went through several iterations. There isn't really anything about this program that I've done alone, and I'm celebrating it. So let me say, nonviolent to me means that we are connected to two traditions. One is the tradition of nonviolence created by Gandhi and Martin Luther King, which to me is encompassed by the focus on courage, truth, and love, and the opportunity to always choose how we respond to circumstances, choose fully in line with our values and our vision, even in moments when our well-being is at risk. That is the essence of nonviolence for me. And the other body from which it draws is the body of nonviolent communication, which is an application of nonviolence to the area of communication, healing, collaboration, and collective function. So that's what nonviolent is, and it's like it carries the biggest weight here. Global means that I will not give my energy to anything that wants to liberate some people at cost to others. If there's going to be liberation, it's going to be liberation of all. Otherwise, it's not truly liberation. It's some form of continuation of what we've had for the last 7,000 years. And what I mean by liberation, it comes from my deep faith in human beings, that underneath the layers of socialization and domination that have separated us for so long from ourselves and from each other and from life and nature, there is an underlying capacity to be part of life, to engage and to contribute in an interdependent flow. And so I want to do my part in contributing to liberating us from the effects of 7,000 to 10,000 years of patriarchy and domination, and the socialization and the structures economic, educational, media, political, everything, the structures that continue this domination and separation.
Very inspiring, Miki. Thank you. I want to ask you some more technical and practical question about the program. And the first one will be, who is this program for?
The program at present, and this will change over time as we grow and mature. At present, the program is designed for people who are already familiar with my work and already in their own ways trying to apply it in the world, in their work, beyond just their own personal life. So it's for practitioners, not for students. That doesn't mean there isn't more to learn. There's more to learn from me too. We will learn together. I have things that I have figured out that I want to pass on. But I want to pass them on in this program to people who are ready to then take it and immediately apply it in their own sphere of work.
Speaking about the practitioners who are already familiar with your work, how can they benefit from being part of NGL?
Well, there are several things. One is that they will get access to ongoing coaching and to the entire library of materials that I've created over the years, which I am barely able to keep track of at this point. But we're talking about probably over 1,000 documents of varying lengths that people will have access to. Coaching time in group with me and with a few other people who have been applying this work for quite a while. And learning from others in the program, just as I'm continuing to learn from people that I engage with. So there's learning from me, learning from people who have learned from me, learning from each other in a co-creative, co-learning process. Belonging in a community of people, so that having strength, because anybody who commits to this kind of work sooner or later is going to find themselves at odds with the way the world functions, and it's really, really, really hard to continue. And this is a place of where you can be supported, where you can come and say, I just can't stand it anymore, and people will receive you and encourage you and empathize with you and give you the support and the coaching and the connection that you need to lift yourself up and keep doing the work, because these are hard times and it's not looking like it's going to get easier anytime soon. And the third thing is an opportunity to practice, to experiment, to contribute. People can create little groups to look at specific areas, to create curriculum, to develop new materials, to provide feedback and coaching. It's like, really, the sky is the limit in terms of what can happen here. We will be deciding it ourselves.
Great. I appreciate a lot your reference to your emphasis to the community, how important it is in this project. About a practitioner again, how do they get involved?
It's very easy. There is an application form with some questions that people answer, because at this point, like I said, we're not quite ready to attend to the needs of people who are early on their journey of learning. So we want people to kind of like to mutually assess, is this the right fit? Because it's not a curriculum program, it's not a study program, although people can do that within co-created small groups. But fundamentally, this is a group of people who have already immersed themselves, at least to some extent, in the work and want to just go further. So there's an application form that people will fill out, and then we'll be in touch to evaluate together if this is a fit. And once that happens, they're going to be invited to join the program, to figure out their own contribution through an entirely gift economy based approach. So people can actually be members without contributing anything if they can't and don't have the ability. And also people might contribute both in terms of work to sustain the community and in terms of money to sustain the people who are giving their life to make this happen.
And do you want to make some reference about also the way they can learn and practice during, I don't know, like retreats, like
This is my question, isn't it now?
This is one of the things that we want to attend to in this program, is the way that there are patterns that happen because we've been in patriarchal training for so long, that without consciousness, without intention, despite so much care, it tends to be men who take the lead in things. And here it just happened, and we have an opportunity to notice it, to attend to it, to care about each other while it's happening. And I'm curious, Davide, how you are about this having happened.
I feel kind of embarrassed, and at the same time I feel grateful for you to raise it, and I think it's a great chance for who is watching the video to experience what this program is about.
I am fully in agreement, because any notion of perfection, that we're supposed to do it this way or that way, belongs to the paradigm of control that we're trying to exactly liberate ourselves from. And we are all fallible, we are all incomplete, we are all struggling, and giving each other feedback is deeply built into the program. So thank you for how you're taking it. And Teresa, thank you for speaking up. And now would you ask the question again, Teresa? Because I totally forgot what it was.
So once we get involved, I'm wondering how will the apprenticeship program and learning community work in actual practice?
So there going to be at least two types of activities. Those that are offered by the people who are kind of like official providers within the community. And at present we have 3, and it's likely to be more over time. We are in conversation with others. What we are offering is 2 things. One is 2 annual retreats that are also open to people who are not in the program, who want to explore and learn and get the necessary immersion so that they can become part of the program. And those happen right now, are scheduled to happen once a year in Poland and once a year in California. The next one is June 4th through 10th in Poland, and then I think it's August 23rd or 24th through the 30th in California in 2018. And those are intended to be annual. And then coaching calls, group coaching calls, some by me, some by other providers, some of them pre-scheduled, open to anyone to come up with any issues or questions from their work, from their learning. And some of them will be scheduled with a particular person who has a particular, significant issue to work out. So the whole session will be dedicated to that person or that group or that project. And it will be announced, and then anyone who is available can join, and everything is recorded, and people can access it over time. So those are the offerings from us. And then in addition, it's whatever else people offer with and to each other. So I already mentioned this, there can be affinity groups, there can be empathy buddies, there can be a group, that takes part of the materials and aims to create a curriculum from it. A group that does outreach projects, a group that, aims to, let's say, give us a status at the UN. I'm just making it up. It's really endless. And I'm hoping that people will also organize in-person gatherings that don't necessarily even involve me. Remember, I will be dead at some point, and hopefully all of you will continue.
Miki, I guess you already answered the following question, but I think it's also useful to stress it again. What's unique about this program? What makes it different from everything else you have done so far?
I would say there are at least two things. One is there's absolutely no set curriculum and no sequence and no cohort and no anything formal like this. It's all informal, it's all emergent, it's all responsive to needs and ideas that I and others will have. That's one. And the other one is that it's the thing that we already talked about, that it's designed for practitioners who are applying it, not for people who are coming to learn something for their own benefit. It's a service program, service both internally and externally. So, you mentioned that there's a team that's been working with me for 6 months. Those are 20-something people who have been creating all the infrastructure in teams, already using the materials and the approach that this program is designed to bring into the world. So we are already being self-referential and organically unfolding and applying what we're learning and serving. So part of the purpose is people joining to increase the chances that this work will continue to exist in the world, regardless of my presence.
Miki, you mentioned co-creation a lot when talking about NGL. What does it actually look like when it happens?
So the first moment of co-creation happened when I first talked about it in Poland last year. I had a very different idea. It was much more limited. And I think it was kind of like in my mind, unconsciously, kind of like unidirectional. And then someone who was there, you were there too, you may remember this, started changing ways, saying, wait a minute, it doesn't have to be like this. It can be a learning community. It can be co-created. We all contribute to the learning and to what happens. And that was a moment of co-creation. The entire design of the program changed based on that one comment that then was taken up by the whole group of 25 people who were there. And the excitement almost broke the roof of the building we were sitting in. Every step of the way, somebody comes up with the idea. Much of the time it will be me coming up with the idea, but the idea changes once it enters conversation. I think about 90 to 95% of the infrastructure work that has been happening to put NGL on the map, I have not even been involved in. I don't even know, what the feedback system is, because I'm going to let it be and see what it is. I checked with the team that created it. Does the system have mechanisms to be updated based on feedback? Because if so, I have too much on my plate right now. I want to let it run right now, and I'm not going to give my feedback. So this program is going out into the world with a feedback system that I didn't look at under my name. It's the ultimate in letting go, and I feel humbled and proud at the same time about my willingness to really surrender anything that remotely resembles control, which doesn't mean I won't speak for what matters to me. I do. I'm not going to try to control what happens. And I think controlling anything really interferes with creativity. And so the is real. I'm not controlling, I'm not dictating. I'm pushing back. Davida, you may remember at one point you came with a request for approval on something. And Uma and I talked about it, and we said, no, we're not going to give him approval. We're going to give it back to him to say, why are you asking for approval? Why aren't you just running with what you want to do, regardless of us?
Yeah. Talking about giving my power away. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I like it. Yeah, thank you. Well, I like this question as well. Where do you imagine the NGL community and the NGL program to grow in the near future?
I really have no idea. I think I'm underestimating the power of this work to grab people, because I remember again when I went to Poland, and I talked before with Uma and Viren, the two people who were there from the beginning of hatching this. And I said, maybe I'll come back from Poland with 3 or 4 people and we can start then thinking about what we want to do. And I came back with 25 people who said, yes, I want to be part of that program, and about 15 of them who were ready to be part of the design team that I didn't even know we were going to have. So what do I know how many people are going to apply in the first wave? Is it going to be 1? Is it going to be 100? I don't know. My ultimate sense is the next step of evolution in NGL is to solidify the structures that exist now, just populate them, let us see how it goes. Ultimately, I think within NGL, there will be structures to support those in NGL who are ready to teach others the basics of the materials so that more people can join as practitioners over time and more people have pathways to become practitioners so that we can increase our capacity to be ready when things crumble. If we get to a level of a few thousand people all over the world, then when things crumble, somebody can step in and say, you know what, we have a model for self-governance that can work. Or, you know what, we know how to organize production very effectively by giving people power in teams. And that's my longish term hope. And not even that longish, maybe within a few years.
Hearing you speaking about the NGL community just sounds really powerful to me. And I'm wondering, like, what does belonging to this community say about who I am, how should I act, and what I believe?
Thank you. I think I would say kind of like two of the core qualities that I am hoping people will cultivate as part of being here, all of us. One is the freedom to choose, and the other is the capacity to interdependently engage with others. And it's interesting, I just recently realized that I was actually thinking through the same lens that Marshall Rosenberg thought many years ago when he started designing what eventually emerged as nonviolent communication. He was talking about autonomy and interdependence. And it was really amazing that without consciously trying to, I landed in the same place. And the two are completely intertwined. So who am I? I am a person, the way I would say this about me and my hope for anyone who wants to be part of NGL, I'm a person who constantly is trying to liberate myself from my socialization and the weight of the culture that I was born into, unless I happen to be one of the infinitesimally small groups, coming from one of the infinitesimally small groups that are still practicing the old matriarchal ways of being together, of being in community, of caring for each other and the whole of life in an organic flow that most of us have lost. If I'm not from one of those very small islands of indigenous thriving, then I've probably been limited by my socialization. And so I'm continually trying to free myself so that I can choose in every moment how I want to respond based on my deepest values and care for the whole. That is really who I'm trying to be. And reclaim and recover my capacity to accept myself, to show vulnerably who I am, even when I'm embarrassed, to give and receive feedback, to give and receive support, to give and receive my ideas, to give and receive my no's and my yeses, all of these things that as an individual I'm trying to learn. That's that question. How should I act? I hope that no one asks that question of themselves in the language of should, because that is such a core element of what I am hoping to liberate ourselves from. It's more, how do I want to act? What elements do I want to guide my action? And at this point, I cannot think of any moment in which I guide my action without thinking about the larger whole, without thinking about how are my actions affecting the rest of the world, the coming generations, other life forms, and even the minerals of the planet. We are at that stage. And how can I be of service to all of that is the second one. And I forgot the third. Who am I?
Yeah, what do I believe?
I don't believe in dogma. I think that it's not possible to engage in the work of liberation without believing that we are interconnected and that life fundamentally, when not interfered with, is arranged to care for all that lives through an endless flow of resources and energy, without believing that it will be really hard to engage non-violently with life.
Wow, I'm taking deep breaths. Thank you
Yeah.
very much for sharing this, Miki.
And to you that have been watching this interview, if you liked what you heard, look for more information by following the link on the URL that appears in the video.
Thank you, friends. This was really delicious.